My name is Tracy Ozer, and this is my podcast, Journey Through Your Suicide Loss. My mission is to share my story of how I've processed my own grief after the loss of my daughter to suicide. We'll delve into the hard survival questions and how they affected me. Hopefully, my story can help you through your own grief journey. Please take some time for yourself and join me. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today I'm talking about the emotional topic of guilt after a suicide loss. Because I lost my 16-year-old daughter to suicide in 2006, I'm taking on the topic of guilt as it comes from a parent's perspective. However, many of the feelings I've had along the way can be attributed to other suicide losses, such as the loss of a spouse or a sibling. I'm going to break this down into 3 sections: guilt after the initial loss, guilt over a few years of soul-searching and therapy, and guilt after many years of reflection. Please stay with us. I'll be right back after this short pause to break these down. If you are personally struggling with thoughts of suicide and actively in danger, please call 911. If you just need to talk to someone about your thoughts of suicide or just need to talk, please call the National Hotline for Suicide Prevention at 1-800-273-TALK. That is 1-800-273-8255. So, to reiterate, in 2006, I lost my beautiful daughter to suicide. Up until that point, I was a single mother trying my best to raise her and her brother in a loving home. We had some challenges along the way. My kids weathered through a divorce, and my son suffered a traumatic brain injury in 2004. He moved in with his dad because he needed full-time care, and I had to work to supply his medical insurance. Between 2005 and the end of 2006, I was torn multiple directions, taking care of services for my son, meetings at school for my daughter's education, working full-time, and holding down an occasional side gig to make ends meet. Life was a juggling act, but I felt like I had things in balance and somewhat under control. At the beginning of 2006, my daughter started showing problems with her mental health. At the onset, I just followed suit with everyone else's ideas that she was a teenage girl trying to find her way, that she was just going into high school and was trying to feel accepted and develop her new social norms with friends, boys, her multiple class schedule, extracurricular activities, etc. I needed to set boundaries to keep her out of trouble and help her evolve into a responsible adult. And then her foundation started to crack. She became involved with a few boys who were negative influences. She started seeing and hearing things that weren't there. She began to create an alternate reality in her own mind, and she started believing those things as being real. Over the course of about 6 months, she made a suicide attempt, went through some mental health treatment, and then fabricated a lie to the police, which got her removed from my home and placed in her father's home with her brother. The reason I am telling you all of this when this podcast is supposed to be about guilt is because then she died. Without knowing these details, it would be hard to convey the extreme feelings of guilt that I fell into, about all the questions I started asking myself. For parents, there are moral and societal obligations. It is understood that we give birth to this tiny human being, and we are responsible to keep them healthy, happy, teach them right from wrong, and ultimately make them responsible adults who will thrive in society. Here is what the child-rearing books, the pediatricians, the schools, and societal norms don't tell you. You can't read your child's mind. You can't make them tell you when or why they are hurting, and you can only do your best with the information you have. That's not a parental cop-out. That's a reality. Right after Chelsea died, I was thrust into an overwhelming pit of guilt. In my mind, This didn't happen to good parents. I was responsible for this child to do the right thing. In my mind, I believe that kids who have parents who love them, show them love, provide the things they want or need, don't make the choice to end their life. So what did I miss? What were the words I didn't say? What was that magical parenting tool that I was supposed to have used? The one that some book or TV show was supposed to have shown me. You know, that thing that would have meant my child would still be here. Where was that inherent biological component that all mothers were supposed to have that would end their child's struggles? Certainly, I must not have tapped into mine. But the reality is, child rearing cannot be defined by generalizations and stereotypes. We are dealing with complex human beings, and even though we created and carried these humans in our own bodies, they are born with their own chemical makeups and their own physical and biological makeups that are different from our own. Even fathers who feel that they are protectors of the family and will put themselves in harm's way in order to keep their child safe don't understand how something could exist that they couldn't protect their child from. My brain functioned in a perpetual loop, playing back every memory from her birth. The guilt of knowing I didn't protect my child and to have given her what she obviously needed kept me from effectively processing my grief. I wasn't sleeping and I wasn't eating right. I would watch other children when I went to places and wondered what their parents had done correctly because their kids were still here. It certainly didn't help when people would actually ask me, "Didn't you see the signs?" Or, "What do you think you missed?" Like I needed someone else to ask me these questions, as if they weren't already repeating in my head over and over again. After a few years of asking all these things, or trying to repress them in the back of my head altogether, I sought out some professional help. My therapist asked some very pointed questions. These are the questions I now ask myself if I start to feel guilty. Number 1, could you read your child's mind? Well, no. Number 2, did your child ever get into trouble or do something you didn't agree with? Did they tell you before they did it? Of course not. Number 3, did your child come up to you and say, at 8 o'clock tonight, after we're done watching the movie, I'm going to go and end my life. I just thought you should know. Of course they didn't. And if they had, you would have stopped them. Number 4, for the things you did know about your child's struggles or the things they did warn you about, did you try to de-escalate, fix, or otherwise get them help? Of course you did. The end point of these questions is you did the best you could with what you had to work with, be it resources, knowledge, or asking for help. You did what was required of you. Cut yourself some slack and let go of the guilt. Now for me, this was easier said than done. This went against everything I had thought about parenting. But rationally, it was true. It meant I had to go through a lot of self-talk to process through this. I was told to write down the questions I was just asked, compare them to my truth, and write a rebuttal. Guilt statement number 1. I should have seen the signs before she ended her life. Truth. I saw her struggling. I helped her through her first suicide attempt. I found a therapist for her, and her pediatrician started her on some medication. I took her to the emergency room when she had a mental breakdown, and I didn't know that in our state, as a minor, she had the right to dictate her own health care, so she opted to leave the facility. So I did what I could with the knowledge and resources I had to work with. Guilt statement number 2. Why didn't I stop her the night she died? Truth. Simply, I didn't know she planned to die that night. It was a typical Friday night. Her brother was sleeping over at a friend's house, and she was at her dad's house on the computer chatting with her girlfriend. As she was logging off for the night, she commented that she hadn't been eating and that she didn't feel good. That was a trigger for me that she wasn't in a good place mentally. I immediately called her dad, told him my fears, and asked him to keep an eye on her. So I acted on her concerning behavior as soon as I noticed it. There wasn't anything else I could have done. As time has gone by, I have learned to know the difference between guilt and regret. I regret that our relationship wasn't in a better place at the time she died. Her behavior had put a wedge between us, and I was harboring a lot of anger. I regret that I was wrapped up in that anger, but thought it would eventually be resolved and we'd be back to normal. While these were simple examples of relieving guilt, the process can be long and emotional. With the help of therapy, peer support by others going through this as well, and a lot of journaling, it is possible to move past the guilt. This is one of the requirements to come out of your grief and be emotionally healthy. I hope this was helpful for you. You can help by leaving a review here and rating our podcast. Please visit our website at www.journeythroughgrief.com. That's www.journeythroughgrief.com to leave any feedback, questions, or to sign up for our newsletter. And be sure to come back and listen to our past and future podcasts. Thank you for your time. Have a good night.